Alright, you guys, it might be a new season, but the vibes are still the same because Hansi Flick and Barcelona have just kicked off the new season with a sensational 3-win over Mallorca, and there is so much that we need to talk about, from the lineup to the goals to the controversies and everything in between. So get strapped in because we're about to get rolling, baby. But first, let's look at the lineup that Hansi Flick put out. Up until last night, we were not sure because we knew that Barcelona were working on having goalkeeper Juan Garcia registered for this game. Happy to see that he was registered. I was checking the news and that news came in just before I went to bed. So today we did have Juan Garcia in goal for Barcelona. Sensational stuff. And then we had Alejandro Balde back in that position. Kubasi and Araujo were Barcelona's pairing at this time around. We do know that we ended up losing Inigo Martinez to Al Hilal this transfer window. We will miss our defensive general, but oh well. But the major shocker for me was seeing Eric Garcia being chosen or selected for this match ahead of Koundé. Now, if you know, Koundé has been the preferred right back for Barcelona for I think 2 seasons now. So for the first game of the new season, seeing Eric Garcia there over Koundé was definitely a shocking sight for me. We did go into a familiar pivot of Pedri and Frankie de Jong, and I really like to say, from everything that I saw in the preseason, I like these two together. They certainly play well and I live for them. And then of course we had Rafinha and Lamine Yamal coming in on the left and right respectively. Femi Lopez was chosen ahead of Dani Olmo because if you remember carefully, Dani Olmo was suffering from a muscle overload. He did end up returning to training this week, or he was nursing that injury. Leading the Barcelona attack was Ferran Torres, who is in the 9 for now because Robert Lewandowski is out, and he will be out for a minimum of 3 weeks, and I think this is the 2nd week, so we should be seeing him back very soon. We did have some substitutions in the game. Davi ended up coming on for Kubasi, which ended up meaning that we had to reshape the way the defense looked like. Marcus Rashford came on the game. Dani Olmo, Koundé, and of course Joffrey Torrent were some of the substitutions that Hansi Flick used in this game. But we have to go into the game immediately because we saw some crazy stuff. Immediately when the game started, the first thing that I noticed was I felt like Mallorca were a bit comfortable allowing Barcelona to have the ball, and for a minute there I felt like, would this be a situation where Barcelona will have to face a low block? And while I was still trying to think through that, Barcelona and Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, they wasted no time in giving us the opening goal of the season, and that came through Rafinha. And again, it was a sensational cross between Rafinha and Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal picks up the ball in the left hand side. He is dancing, he is doing his thing, you know, and then he puts in a cross. The cross does have an opportune bounce, but the bounce itself is so weighted that it gets onto Rafinha's head, and immediately he gives a very good header, and it's 1-0, 7 minutes on the game. Now I have to look at the Mallorca players at this point and hold their hands, and I will say that this man that you're supposed to be marking was essentially the La Liga player of the season for last season. He was the highest goal scorer in the UEFA Champions League and damn near deserved to be named the UEFA Champions League player of the season. So there was no reason why Rafinha should be having a free header. There was no reason at all, but somehow they totally missed him in the back post, and it was a free header. Now going on there, I expected Barcelona to explode and then to go on to, like, you know, run with the game. I think every time we played Mallorca last season, we've had our way with them, so I was expecting no less than 5-0. We did end up scoring 3, but it did take us a while to get there. The second thing that happened in this game was the Ferran Torres goal, and now I have to talk about it because a lot of the game we did see some situation where there was a little bit of the ball ricocheting here and there, and in all of this, it stems from, like, again, Lamine Yamal being in the mix. He's driving with the ball, and I think he does put in a shot into the box. The Mallorca defender tries to defend the ball, and I think he does so with his head. It goes down, and immediately I do think that the Mallorca players thought that the referee was going to blow because it was like maybe a head injury, so they kind of relaxed thinking that it was going to blow. Unfortunately, the referee did not blow. The only person who was quickest to it to continue reacting, to continue to play, was Ferran Torres. He picks the ball up at the edge of the penalty, and it's a sensational strike from the edge of the penalty into the net. Now immediately I was going to celebrate. I was on live on TikTok, by the way. If you're not following me on TikTok, you should absolutely be doing that. It is at Just Max on TikTok. And if you've watched up until this point and you have not subscribed yet, please come on, be my friend, be my homie, hit that subscribe button and let us go, because we are on our way to, I don't know what should be our target this season. Put that in the comment section. But like, please subscribe, like, share this video, and let's continue to grow this channel together. But as I was saying, while I was on live on TikTok, I was very confused because I thought it was a goal, and certainly I was about to celebrate, but the reaction of everybody in and around the stadium was like, I was very confused, because the Mallorca players were acting like nothing happened, and of course the Barca players, they were, you know, high-fiving each other, but they were not sure if they should run around and celebrate. You know, like when you see like a goal gets scored, they usually run around and celebrate, but they weren't doing that, so I wasn't sure if we should be celebrating. And so to my surprise, the confusion just died down, and the referee awards a goal for Ferran Torres. And of course the Mallorca players are beside themselves, because they were like, it's supposed to be, you know, a situation where you should have blown your whistle. But I think the referee goes over to the Mallorca coach to explain like, oh, I did have my whistle up, but I had not blown when he hit the strike, so it should stand, because like I had not blown, the game was still in play. Now personally, I know that this is going to be a controversial bit. It's going to be a major talking point for much of the reactions of this game, because like, oh, should it have stood? Should the referee have done better? For me, I took it as a lesson and continue to play until you're sure, right? I felt like the Mallorca players, they felt like, okay, the natural step would be that the referee would blow for a player to get checked, and so they stopped, or they didn't attack the ball with the necessary vigor as they should have, whereas Ferran Torres, being the number 9 that he was, continued to play until the end, and so he did end up getting his reward. Although if I were to look at the referee, I will blame him a little bit for causing a little bit of a confusion, because he should have actually blown for the player to get checked, because again, the player was down in the pitch, and you know, he should have blown for him to get checked. And again, this was again a head injury, so that was a situation that the referee didn't do too well. But again, it's a lesson for the Mallorca players to continue to play until the game is done. I would say that that period also was a pivotal turning point for the game, because I don't think that the Mallorca players took it very well. I felt like they felt hard done by, and this happened on the 23rd minute. Of course, there was a little bit of a conversation, so let's say, you know, between the 23rd to the 25th minute that we're trying to sort all of this out. And then the first sign of disaster for Mallorca was on the 33rd minute, when Lamine Yamal again is on the ball. He's dancing, he's doing some dribble, and at this point I knew that they had to foul him before he got into the 18, because he had momentum, right? I knew that it made sense for you to take him down. Now it would have been something as simple as, you know, dragging his shirt back, or something like that. But you didn't need to do too much, you know, by going for his ankle. But the Mallorca player was trying to commit a foul that was needed in that situation, but he ended up doing too much, and that was the first red card for Mallorca. And it was going to be on the 33rd minute. And things will rapidly go from bad to worse for Mallorca from there, because on the 39th minute, barely 5 minutes after that happened, Mallorca will end up getting a second red card. Now this one is mostly, oh my days, it comes as a result of a situation where, you know, there was a little bit of a miss pass from Barcelona in the midfield. The ball again is in the hands of Mallorca, and they ended up, you know, playing a ball over the top, which, by the way, I must recognize it as a useful strategy in breaking Barcelona's high line. They played the ball over the top, and I want to applaud Juan Garcia for recognizing the danger. The Mallorca player Mirki had run in from the player, so he was very well on side. Juan Garcia recognizes the danger and comes out to do a bit of a sweeper keeper moment, but because the ball was going to be landing at the edge of the box, maybe at the line, he wasn't sure if it was going to be inside or outside, or if it's something that he could go with his hand. So to prevent the potential of it being a handball situation, what does he do? He goes in with the heads. Now he's first to the ball. Now I would have advised Muriqi to pull out of the challenge, but what he does was he takes his feet so high up, and then he stamps his studs on Juan Garcia's head, and immediately I saw that. I was like, oh no, my days, this is most going to be definitely a red card situation. Now initially the referee had given it as a yellow card, but of course VAR intervened and gave the referee something to look at, and looking at that, within the space of 5 minutes, Mallorca were down 2 men, and of course they were essentially playing 9-11. And at this point, I'm going to be honest with you, and I expected Barcelona to go ahead and run away with the game. So I have to stand 10 toes down and give full credit to Mallorca for how well they held themselves together, because they ended up locking in defense. They were sensational. The way that they worked hard as a team to make sure that Barcelona did not have too many more chances in the game to not increase the margin. At this point in my life, I was thinking, oh, could we get up to 8 goals? Could we at least get 5? You know, because like we've been so spoiled in Hansi Flick football that I thought, why not, right? So I have to give credit to Mallorca. They worked hard. They came back in the second half very focused, very locked in. Their goalkeeper himself, he did so well in making sure that he was so locked in. Many of the things that Barcelona tried to do is either they had defenders throwing themselves in the way, or the goalkeeper was coming up with big saves. So I have to give credit to them. At the same time too, I have to also give credit to them in the way they attack the ball. Now the logical thing for most teams to do would have been to say, okay, I'm going to sit back and absorb the pressure. We're already losing. What's the worst that could happen, right? But they still attacked. They had a moment here and there. Of course, when you look at the ball possession, it ended up being heavily in support of Barcelona. That's like 72 to 28%. But that's to be expected, right? There are 8 men to Barcelona's and men on the field. So of course that's to be expected. At Barcelona, we have the possession much of the time. But like whenever they did have the opportunity to do so, they went forward, they created a few things. And if those two players did not lose their head in that moment because they had felt like a sense of injustice and maybe they had stayed on the pitch, maybe I felt like Mallorca would have posed a bigger threat to Barcelona. And maybe this is something that they need to go back and review and work on in terms of like keeping your emotions together. So that's one thing for them there. We did see Marcus Rashford make his debut for Barcelona. It wasn't the best debut. He didn't have like a sensational game, I'm going to be honest with you. However, he did have that moment with Geoffrey Torres where they had a very good combination play, and Geoffrey Torres was able to put in a ball in the box for anybody to tap in. Unfortunately, there was nobody at the back post to like put in a tap in. But that was the most moment for myself for Marcus Rashford. Again, I'm not going to put too much pressure on him because at the end of the day, it was immaterial. Barcelona were already winning 2-0 and they were 10 men to 8. So the fact that he didn't have like a big standing ovation kind of game is immaterial at this point. But I will expect better from him moving forward. Again, congratulations to Geoffrey Torrent also for making his La Liga debut, someone who we saw during pre-season for Barcelona. And of course, I liked what I saw from him, and we need to continue to develop this player. If I were to offer a criticism to Barcelona players, I felt like where many people would have expected that the 2 red cards would mean that Barcelona will go on to like have a sensational game and run away with the game, I felt like that did throw them a bit off in the level of seriousness at which they approached the game with. And I'm going to be honest, this is me offering a bit of a criticism to them. I felt like sometimes because they felt like that they had that numerical superiority, that maybe they were a bit too casual in their passing or they were a bit too casual in their finishing, which led to Mallorca being able to intercept things here and there. So there's some lessons to be learned, there's some growing to be done there. Now to wrap up the game though, Lamine Yamal did end up getting his goal, and I thought it was a very beautiful goal. He's been trying to have it all game long. You could see it was just that one moment before the final whistle, and the Mallorca players, they've worked hard up until this point in the 94th minute. They worked hard to keep the score at 2-0, but when Lamine Yamal gets that ball, like he steps in, steps out, and then gets that dip of the left shoulder. Is something that we've seen throughout the whole of last season. And if there's anything that could be described as a Lamine Yamal goal, that's exactly what it was. I'll go as something that I've said, it is patented premium Lamine Yamal stuff, and that was the last kick of the game to seal it for Barcelona. Of course, I am so excited to have the new season starting, coming up with 3-0 win over Mallorca. We go straight to the top of the La Liga table, and we let the rest of the league know we are starting the way we finished. We're not missing a beat. And now it's over to you, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, to do your own thing, because we just did our big one. Oh yeah, and I am so excited to have Barcelona football back. We are locked in. The season has officially started. The best team in the world has laid down the gauntlet, and it's time for us to get going. But let me know what you thought about this game in the comment section. I was so hyped watching this game. Of course, I will continue to cover all of Barcelona football. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. And not just Barcelona football, I also cover the English Premier League, so you should be watching my short form content as well, because a lot of my content on EPL football is going to be posted there as well. But until next time, bye guys.